Protecting your rights, regardless of status, ensures you receive the justice and compensation you deserve. We discuss this and more on the next Latino Motion. Join us.
Latino Motion with Bert Lopez is presented by Latino Motion Public Affairs Media, a New Jersey nonprofit corporation. Join us online at www.latinomotion.tv. Find us on Facebook and YouTube. We encourage your comments and contributions for show topics. Funding for Latino Motion is provided by Atlanticare. For more information, call 1-888-569-1000 or visit atlanticare.org. Atlantic City Electric, energy for a changing world. And South Jersey Gas.
Welcome to Latino Motion, a weekly interview show highlighting issues impacting New Jersey's Latino community while advancing understanding of Latino cultural heritage and contributions to our society. And here is your host, Bert Lopez.
Buenos dias and welcome to Latino Motion. An attorney provides expert guidance and protects your rights when it matters most. I'm happy to have a young attorney who does just that, Rebecca Marone. Rebecca, welcome to Latino Motion.
Thank you, Bert. Pleasure to be here.
It's happy to have you here, and certainly you're a young attorney, so you're the perfect person to talk a little bit about the law career. And I want to, first of all, start by asking you what practice you're doing right now.
Right now, I'm practicing personal injury and workers' compensation.
And you work for?
Petro Cohen.
So tell me a little bit about why you decided to become an attorney.
I decided to become an attorney because I used to watch Doctora Ana Maria Polo.
Oh, really?
Yes. For those that may not know, she's like the Hispanic version of Judge Judy. And she came from Cuba when she was 6 years old, just like myself.
Wow.
And so I used to watch her on TV, and I liked the fact that she always made justice. And I told my mom one day, I said, Mom, I want to do what she does one day. And she said, well, if you want to be a judge, you have to go to law school. And then ever since then, I was 9 years old, and I never wavered.
Well, that's a great story. And by the way, I had the pleasure of meeting La Doctora. She was here in Atlantic City.
Wow.
The Hispanic Alliance brought her for an event years ago.
Wow.
Before you were probably in law school. So it's been a little while, but that's exciting that you had a role model to follow. Tell me a little bit about your path that you took to become an attorney.
I graduated high school, obviously. I went to Mainland Regional High School, local school here. After high school, I went to the College of New Jersey. I majored in philosophy and gender studies with a specialization in law and philosophy. Upon graduating, I did take some time off to study for the LSATs, which is the standardized test you have to take to get into law school. I also got more work experience. I worked at South Jersey Legal Services during that time. And then after getting a score high enough to apply to law school, I applied. I made sure that I relied on others who were already in law school to guide me as far as my application, to review that, because standardized taking is not my strong suit, and so I had to excel in other parts of my application. And then I was able to get into Barry University School of Law in Orlando, Florida. I decided to go to Florida because I wanted to spread my wings and fly out of New Jersey for a little while since I went.
You're back home.
Yes.
So it's great.
I still love pizza and bagels. And yeah.
Tell me a little bit about the challenges, right? And I know for a Latina, it's not always easy, and you may have had some challenges. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I definitely have imposter syndrome. It was difficult to be, I'm an immigrant in this country. My mom didn't go to college in America. She didn't know the process. So I had to figure out by myself how an application works, how the FAFSA financial application works. I had to seek help when I needed tutoring and all those things because my mom didn't understand the language. My mom couldn't help me study, so I had struggles in that aspect. But also, I had people along the way who doubted me too. I was told one point in my life that, face it, you're Hispanic, you're not going to be able to do X, Y, and Z. But that gave me the power and the fire to keep going.
And I know exactly how you feel because I came here when I was 6 years old, as well from Puerto Rico, had some of the same similar challenges that a lot of Latinos face. Tell me a little more about not just the challenges, but the opportunities, right? And I know that you got engaged in college doing other stuff.
Yeah, so in college, I was captain of my Latin dance team called Ritmo Latino.
Oh.
I was also part of various honor societies. I volunteered at local campaigns here in Atlantic County. And yeah, I made sure that I put myself out there and I made connections because networking opens doors for you that you may not otherwise be able to open through your own immediate connections.
And that's important. A lot of kids struggle with that, right? Go to college. I mean, it's a big commitment just to go to college and to study, but also making the additional commitment to be involved in the community and other programs.
I always say it's good to get comfortable being uncomfortable.
I like that. Let's talk a little bit about in terms of the choice that you had once you graduated, right? And I'm sure you had to go to practice somewhere and be a clerk at some point, right? So tell me a little bit about that.
So during the summer before your second year of law school, the summer after you graduate your second year of law school, the application's open to apply for a legal clerkship with the judiciary.
Okay.
I immediately took the opportunity to apply as soon as the application opened. I had guidance of mentors, such as my current boss, Richard Geckel. He mentored me on how that application process worked. He mentored me to tell me that a clerkship even existed because I didn't even know what that was. Again, being an immigrant in this country, not knowing that was something that was available to me. So I had the privilege of obtaining a clerkship with Judge Michael Blee. At the time, he was the assignment judge for Atlantic and Cape May County. And in April of my clerkship, he was promoted or obtained the title of administrator of the courts for the state of New Jersey. And in that transition period, I got the privilege of also clerking for Judge Shepard in her role as the assignment judge. So that clerkship really gave me a lot of opportunities to see how the inside of the judiciary works.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about, did you have any role models, other Latinos that were in the legal system?
Yes, I had a mentor, her name is Maria Cortez.
Okay.
She is an attorney, she does corporate litigation, and she also mentored me as far as how to study for exams in law school. She also told me about her clerkship. She clerked for Judge Mendez in his role as assignment judge. He was the assignment judge prior to Judge Blee.
So what advice would you give a young individual who's thinking about a career, perhaps becoming a lawyer or getting involved in the legal system? What advice would you give them?
I would say don't doubt yourself. Keep going. It is difficult, but you have to have the motivation to seek that passion that you have, and don't let that motivation ever waver. But in the same token, you have to have discipline because law school is very difficult, and sometimes motivation will dwindle because you're seeing how difficult it may be. But your discipline is the active choice of continuing to do that same thing over and over until you reach the end.
You mentioned a couple mentors, Richard Gecko, who's going to be on the show shortly, and Maria Cortez. Tell me the importance of having a mentor.
It's priceless to have a mentor, truly. They tell you about options and opportunities that are out there that you may not know. They support you when you're doubting yourself. I had applied to transfer law schools from Barry to school back here in New Jersey, and I didn't get in. And I really doubted myself, thinking that I'm not smart enough, that my future is ruined, all the things that you think about as a young student. And thanks to Rich to talk to me and say, just because a door closed doesn't mean you can't pave your own path elsewhere. And that's why a mentor is so important, not just for giving you opportunities, but also speaking to you from a different perspective when you're in a tough time.
That is so vital, so vital. And we're going to hear more from your mentor shortly. We're just going to take a quick break. We'll be right back with more Latino Motion.
Latino Motion with Bert Lopez is presented by Latino Motion Public Affairs Media, a New Jersey nonprofit corporation. Join us online at www.latinomotion.tv. Find us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We encourage your comments and contributions for show topics.
Welcome back to Latino Motion. Joining me now is Richard Gecko, managing attorney for Petro Cohen, and Rebecca Jo Marone. Welcome back, Rebecca, and welcome, Richard.
Welcome. Thank you.
Now, Richard, just to finish off the discussion we just had with Rebecca, she says you were your mentor, and she talks highly favorable of having a mentor when you start out in your career. Tell me about the experience. How was that experience for you?
Well, it was a unique experience because that whole relationship, a mentor-mentee relationship, that's really put somebody in the area of trying to help or trying to guide somebody. And if you ask any attorney, at some point in their careers when they were younger, there was always that somebody that would help guide them along. When I first met Rebecca, and even today, she was just always very inquisitive. She was always asking why. And as an attorney, practicing for about 20 years, it actually made me question why or ask why. So her inquisitive nature actually helped me look back and kind of remember how it was when I started out. So it was a good reminder of where you come from and why you made the journey.
So I have a 14-year-old who's always asking why, and I think he should become an attorney. So I know that your firm specializes in personal injury and workers' comp. Let me just ask you a little bit about what roles you play in the agency.
Sure. So Petro Cohen, our practice areas focus on workers' compensation and personal injuries. Our practice is limited to those who are injured, either what we refer to as a third-party injury, which would fall under personal injury, a motor vehicle accident, products liability, a slip and fall, dangerous condition of property, or a workers' compensation matter, and that has a whole different set of rules. That's where somebody is injured while they're working, and there's different rights and different areas of recovery depending on what the specifics are of that.
So Rebecca, I guess having that specialty is more beneficial for a client, right? Because you truly specialize in those areas of personal injury and workers' comp.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about definitions.
Sure.
Right. What is personal injury? What qualifies as personal injury?
Personal injury is when somebody sustains an injury through the fault of another. Okay, somebody was acting careless. Your example would be a motor vehicle accident. You're stopped at a red light, you get rear-ended and you're hurt. All right. Well, you're rear-ended because somebody else was not being careless. You're injured as a result of that carelessness. So the way our laws operate is there provides compensation for what I like to say, what you've lost. It's money damages, but really what you're doing is you're replacing what somebody has lost. You're replacing either time missed from work, activities that you once enjoyed, the ability to be pain-free, and that's how our legal system is essentially set up. Every case is different, so they all have to be viewed as on a different case-by-case basis, but that's essentially what personal injury is. It's different from the workers' compensation aspect, but injury is really, it's a fault-based system. Somebody was hurt because somebody else was at fault.
And we'll continue our discussion based upon personal injury. We could talk about workers' comp in the next segment. But Rebecca, do Latinos have a difficult time coming to an attorney when they're injured? Is there a barrier to seeking an attorney?
I mean, I don't want to speak for all Latinos, but I do believe that there is some type of barrier because they're seeing a legal process, and sometimes they might be afraid of seeking an attorney because they don't know what other things they might be risking, or they're afraid of just going to the courthouse, having a deposition taken. It's things that most people in general get nervous about. So, and a language barrier might also affect that.
So why is it smart for you to seek an attorney when you have a personal injury?
Because we can advocate on your behalf in a very vulnerable time of your life, especially if you are predominantly Spanish speaking. I speak Spanish, and I can understand your language and your situation because you can communicate with me directly, and there's not a middle person in translating between the two of us. I also think that it's important to seek an attorney when you're in such a vulnerable place because we know the system and we know what standards and rights are already set in place so that you can recover in this difficult time.
Right. And Rich, I know that you mentioned that personal injury involves the neglect of someone else. I always remember when it snows, and we're responsible for the the sidewalk, and I have this always in the back of my mind. If someone falls, I might get sued. So, what's the other side of that in terms of telling people why it's so important to be mindful of that you're liable if you are neglectful?
Well, see, and actually you bring up an important point because you're worried about the sidewalk in front of your home.
Right.
Okay. If somebody slips in front of that sidewalk in front of your home and you didn't do anything with the snow and you just left it alone, the law protects you, actually.
Oh, really?
Yes. If somebody is walking outside of a supermarket and they don't ice or treat their walkway and somebody falls, then the supermarket can be liable. So really, having an attorney is very important because they can explain these little bit of nuances.
Wow, okay. I didn't know that before. I always had that in the back of my mind. So, it doesn't matter how cold it is, I'm over there shoveling snow. But, so it's a good thing to do for the neighborhood, right? So,
Well, once you touch it, you gotta go back, so.
tell me a little bit about what kind of clients, what kind of injuries. I think you mentioned some of it, but what is the most type of injuries that you typically deal with?
The most common type injuries are spinal injuries, neck and lower back. Again, every case is different, so people will have broken bones, ankles. A fall will usually cause an ankle. But a lot of the injuries stem from your neck and your back, and really it's because of the way the body is built. Your spine is basically supporting the entire top half of your body, so it's vulnerable to injury. Specifically like a soft tissue injury or like a disc injury. And you see that quite often in motor vehicle accidents. You see that often in workplace accidents. That is probably the most common. It's not the only injury. There are people that have suffered injured elbows from a fall, ankles or knees or shoulders get injured, but I think primarily it would be the spinal injury, just based on the anatomy.
Is motor vehicle the most common cause of those injuries?
Motor vehicle accident, I would have to say, is usually the most common form of the spinal injuries. And it's one of the more larger injury related just because there's so many cars on the road. But certainly you can be injured from the fault of anybody. You can be injured from, as you were mentioning, an icy sidewalk. Right. You can be injured because stairs are constructed improperly. It could be a construction site injury. You could be injured because a product hasn't been manufactured safely. So while motor vehicle accidents are probably the most common, just given the number of cars on the road, there are several different ways someone can get injured.
So obviously, there's a lot of folks who probably don't think it's worth the trouble to go to an attorney with their injury. Maybe the injury is not so severe. But we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more Latino Motion. Welcome back to Latino Motion. We continue our discussion with Richard Gecko, Managing Attorney for Petro Cohen, and Rebecca John Morone. Welcome back again. We were just talking about how some people may be hesitant to seek an attorney. Rebecca, this is especially true perhaps for someone it's not documented. Tell me more about that.
So whether you're documented or undocumented, your status is inadmissible in a court of law, and you still have rights to sue for recovery for your injuries, especially if someone else was careless.
Yeah, that's important, right?
Yes.
Certainly that you're protected and the law does protect you. Now, this personal injury obviously involves someone being at fault. Mm-hmm. But I understand that workers' comp doesn't matter who's at fault. Is that true, Richard?
That's 100% correct. If you are injured at work, you're entitled to certain statutory benefits. There are benefits that are on the books. All employers are required to carry workers' compensation insurance. It does not matter who is at fault. If you get hurt while you're in the course of your job, the law affords you payment for your medical treatment any time that you may be out of work, and an award of disability without having to prove that the employer either contributed to it or was at fault in any way.
And obviously, Rebecca, some Latinos may be hesitant, perhaps because of their status or for some other reasons. What would be your response to that?
Well, I would say that every case is different, and they should just seek an attorney to ask for guidance as to how they should handle their situation.
Now, when we're talking about workers' comp, not only is the employer paying into a fund, the employees as well, I believe. Is that how it works? So it's a lawsuit against the employer, or is this some sort of insurance that gets paid?
So for all employers are required to have workers' compensation insurance. They pay premiums every year. They have a certain insurance rating based on number of employers, et cetera. They're required to carry that insurance. The claim, if you will, the claim really is the employee against the employer, but the real party in interest is the workers' comp insurance company that has to pay for the medical treatment and the benefits. And that's important to know too, because a lot of times they're a little bit hesitant that, well, if I make a claim for workers' compensation, my employer will fire me in retaliation. Retaliation is illegal in the state of New Jersey. And really it's not the claim. The real party interest is actually the insurance company that the employer has paid the premiums for anyway. So
typically, if you're injured on the job, wouldn't you just go to HR and file for a claim?
So yeah, if you're injured on the job, you actually have an obligation to report the injury to HR. HR will then report it to their workers' compensation carrier. If you don't report that you were injured on the job within a certain time frame, then your claims may be denied. I think the question you're getting at is, why can't they just do it on their own? Which the reason that you don't do it on their own is because sometimes the doctors may say, okay, you've had enough treatment. It's the workers' compensation insurance carrier that actually selects the doctors. Sometimes the doctors may say, well, you've had enough treatment, and that's when you would need an attorney.
So the scales might be tilted somewhat.
The scales are absolutely tilted, and it's always advisable to have a workers' compensation attorney.
Now, what's that process like? Is that going to a court hearing, or is that basically negotiation?
So the initial process is meeting with a workers' compensation attorney, finding out what the case is about. making sure that the medical treatment is in order. Once an injured worker has completed their treatment, then there is a period where they're evaluated by various doctors. And then the attorneys move to try to get the case resolved. Sometimes that involves a conference with a judge or an approval of a settlement by the judge. Sometimes it involves a trial. It really depends on which case or how the case is really going.
Now, I imagine that you get compensated for, if your permanent injury is a permanent injury, obviously you get compensated for that. If it's just a temporary, so I guess the payout, if you will, is based upon the type of injury.
It's a permanent impairment, and it's based on a percentage of disability.
Okay.
If it were our firm, our client, we would have a doctor. Our client would give an opinion as to that percentage. The workers' compensation carrier would give an opinion as to that percentage. I'm sure that you can imagine the workers' compensation carriers will be lower, but it's based on a percentage and based on a schedule.
So obviously, your firm provides a lot of these services, and giving that back to the community is also very important. And I know, Rebecca, I know you've been involved in the community. I'm happy to say that you're also a member of the Hispanic Association of Atlantic County. You do some other things, and I'm sure you welcome those that your attorneys are involved and engaged in the community.
Oh, absolutely. It's very important to be engaged in the community. I tell people, or when I talk about our firm, I tell them, I said, we represent our neighbors and our friends. We're part of this community. We've been part of this community since 1998. So over a quarter of a century, we've been part of the Atlantic, Cape May, and South Jersey communities. So it's very important for us to become involved, and we enjoy becoming involved because, again, they're our neighbors and our friends.
Now, Rebecca, I know you're also involved with the Latino Bar Association.
Yes.
And also engaged with some youth. Tell me more about that.
So I am trustee for Atlantic and Cape May County for the Hispanic Bar Association of New Jersey. And in that role, I just started it October 29th. However, it is all about community outreach and opening doors for the community and for students who are looking to seek higher education, even if it is law school or elsewhere.
Yeah, so that's great. You're giving back to the community. Certain, very proud that you're also working within the Latino community, which is very important. Richard, just to close us out a little bit here, your firm does a lot of stuff, and obviously the important thing is that if you're injured, whether it's the neglect of someone else or you're injured in the job, what's the first thing you should do?
First thing that you should do is contact our office. You can go on our website, and we actually have a what are my first steps, and you can see exactly how we will take the process through. So you contact our office either by calling us or emailing us. You'll speak to an attorney and set up an appointment to come in.
And I know from a personal experience that Rebecca's been able to help a friend who was recently injured that didn't even think that he needed an attorney. So certainly, that's just going to be a big help because he may have some permanent injuries, and certainly it has already impacted his ability to make a living. Well, this is all the time we have, unfortunately, but I want to thank you for joining us here on Latino Motion, and thank you for joining us once again here on Latino Motion.
Funding for Latino Motion is provided by Atlanticare. For more information, call 1-888-569-1000 or visit atlanticare.org. Energy for a changing world. And South Jersey Gas.